Okay. No one's online. That's cool. I don't expect there to be anybody on a stream that just started. So, but I will begin on the project that I'm about to do this evening. And for posterity of the video, I guess I'll describe what I'm doing. I am going to be working on software as a service that I built, which is called College Conductor. And it's a site. It's at collegeconductor.com, which is all about college admissions and college deadlines. It's about pulling together application deadlines and making a useful tool for admissions counselors and independent consultants. So that's the domain. It's less important, I think, for the actual purpose of what we're doing. Because what you came to see is coding. And so what I'm going to do for coding is work on the actual Python and Django application that powers this project. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing here because this is my first actual stream. You see one person online. Hello, hope you are. My plan tonight is to work on a piece of the back end for the system that is handling certain types of schools. There are different types of college applications that are out there for different schools. And there's something referred to as the common application. So if you're applying to school today, you can do that for a number of schools. There's a coalition, there's a universal. These different types of schools exist, and or these different types of applications exist. And so what I'm doing in this code is I'm trying to do some web scraping to actually track what schools these are, and then it will allow me to very quickly set the deadlines for what those schools are for when their apps are due. So this is a Django project, as I mentioned, and I'm using Celery, which is a back-end, it's a technology for doing background tasks. And so I have a task that goes to one of these websites, the Common App website, and simply using requests and beautiful soup, it's scraping the site, looking for schools, it's going to their main page of the school listing, and it is collecting them all together into one master list that then I can process. It's pretty brute force in its approach. That's because the Common App website does not provide an API to say what schools are part of the Common App process. So this task, my plan is to have it run about weekly to check if there are any new additions to the list of Common App schools. And I guess I can show off. Let's take a quick look at the Common App website so you can have an idea of what I'll be working on. We can explore the colleges and this page over here. So it's this search colleges page. There are 818 results. Thankfully, the results are in a very standard format, server-side rendered so that the code is available for scraping. And essentially, I look for the school name and the slug that the school is so that I can uniquely identify, because I'm pretty sure that would be unique for all of the schools that they have. And I pull out all of the schools for the page, and I find the next link to check if there's another page, and I go through all of them, and to pull out all 818. So that's what this task is doing here. It's in a loop. It grabs the page, it puts it into Beautiful Soup, which is a parser for doing that stuff, and extracts the schools by, I did some analysis on what were the actual div tags and where could I look to extract this information. And I pull it all out and just chunk it into a big list, which is right here. And once I'm done with that, I am passing it off to what I'm calling the common app handler. And my handler is where I'll be focused on this evening to actually do this processing. My goal with my processing is to make sure that each school is tracked. If it's not tracked, add it to the database. I have a Django model that keeps track of these things. So add it to a database and update it appropriately if the name has changed, like maybe the common app has fixed something. Or it'll also collect together things that have been removed. Maybe a school is no longer there. So essentially this handler is going to have to handle the three different types of scenarios that can occur with a school. It's either added to my tracking, it's modified in my tracking, or it's deleted. So I like to do test-driven development on this, the way I write code, and I've got this file separated out into two different open files that I've already started earlier, and have the test case here that was testing one condition before it gets into the further processing. So for a little bit of context of what I already did was, my thought process was, if I crawl through all the pages and the same number turns up at the end, so if we look at the page, it's at 818. If it reports back 818 and I check my own database and I see that my count matches, I'm going to assume that I don't need to do any processing. It's probably not a fully valid assumption, because there could be someone in that 818 that was modified, but it seemed like a reasonable enough thing to make sure that I'm not wasting a bunch of time processing. It's probably an over-optimization if I look at it seriously, but it seemed like a decent thing to do. And it was a way to get me started on how to break into this handler. So I have my test for what happens when there's nothing to do, and I always like to set up my test with that's not C++, come on, the arrange, act, assert style, so I break it up. So this is, and I use a new line to actually separate the two, to show the different sections of this style of testing. So this top part is my arrangement, and this middle part is the thing that I'm actually acting on and want to test, and then this assert at the bottom is the thing that I want to prove is correct or not. So yeah, I haven't really fully thought through how I'm going to approach this. All I know is that I have the raw data from the list of schools that I'll be looking at, and I know that I need to add them to a database. I also have some thoughts about sending emails to myself to kind of track, because this will be running weekly in a background task in the middle of the night, and I don't want to have to go check somewhere. I would much prefer the system to tell me what has actually occurred, and what do I have to do further processing on. To give the reason for why that is, let's take a look at the model itself. So this is the thing that I'm trying to create, this common app tracker instance. is going to be created and automatically get a datetime instance when it's created in the database. And then the name and the slug field, these are the things that I'm extracting from the Common App website that I will use to correlate with the list of schools that I already have. I guess I'm missing out on some key information here that I'm realizing. So in my current database, I have a list of over 2,000 schools that I have pulled from various sources over the years. And it's the stuff that College Conductor actually tracks and seeks to add value to. It's the stuff that I've committed to getting the dates for to enable consultants to actually do their job. Since I'm a super user here, I get this extra admin like that no one else sees. But I can just quickly show you that this is like a real data set that I actually have 2,000 schools. And so when I'm scraping this Common App site, I want to correlate my actual schools with these tracker models that I'm doing. So that's what this is for. So the data is going to get stored in here from the Common App site, and my process is going to be, once I have the list of all 800 plus schools, then I can actually go through them and triage them and decide whether I want to track them and correlate them with my real schools or ignore them. There are some schools in this list that are for international universities and things that are outside of the domain of the 2,000 schools that I have. And so I'm not going to be tracking everything perfectly, which is what is a little different about this. So I need to give myself some kind of status field to track in here, which is why I have a list of choices here of what, this is going to be the default when I haven't considered it at all. And as I go through them, I will connect them using a foreign to know, have a direct tie of this is what the Common App school points to the equivalent record in my database, because the names that I might have in my own database might be slightly different from what the Common App stores, and I want mine to be the canonical format because it's tied to other resources. So that's why it has a format too. So the job of the handler, as I've said and I'll repeat, is to create these tracker instances so that I can process them later and tell me what's added, modified, and deleted. Because my plan is, if this runs every week, let's say, it will inform me of changes over time. So as new schools decide to adopt the Common App, I will be able to be notified of that and add them to the database as appropriate. So I think that is all of the background and context that's really needed to get started before on actually writing some code. A little bit of context I think helps so that it's not a mystery of the code I'm writing. And as I write this actual test code, I will explain the features that I'm using, because there are a number of different testing frameworks that I'm using and strategies that I use to actually build that stuff. Plus, I don't actually know the best way that I want to handle this yet, so kind of walk through it together. Okay, so my Common App handler is I guess it's considered a method object, in that it's an object that is invoked with one function or one method. And some might argue that it's a silly thing to do in Python, because Python has functions as first-class objects. So conceivably, I could do the exact same thing and ignore all of the class ceremony of making a class object and instantiating it and doing all of that, and just use a function. And there's an argument for that, but I think what's happening here, and the reason I want to do it this way, is so that I can actually break it up into smaller private methods effectively, like this process school. And what that will enable me to do by having private methods is to actually test each piece in isolation. So I could have one overarching test that will test the handle call with some actual data like this and see that it does roughly the right thing. But if I want to get into the nitty-gritty of is this thing added, modified, deleted, it's a little difficult by setting up extra stuff. We'll see if that turns out to be overkill. I'm not really sure. This just seemed like a reasonable approach to get going. Okay, that's probably enough me talking. Let's get this in actual code. So I do TDD, which means I'm going to write my first test. And the things that I want to do is check whether something should be added or not. I'm going to take a really dumb approach to this. Let's see, so add, what should I call it? Test, add tracker. So I'm going to check that a raw school, a school that I'm considering is raw, is like the raw data from the web scrape. So a raw school is added and a tracker if missing. So that's the add case. It's the pure, it doesn't exist in any form. So let's make sure we add it. So to set this up, I do copy paste. There's different schools of thought on testing. The school of thought that I like is it's better to repeat yourself a little bit than dry up your test code too much, because in the process of drying up and creating utility functions, you can have too much indirection in your testing. So I'm more willing to repeat creation of a handler, for example, rather than create it in a setup method. That's the style that I prefer. So I instantiate my handler as part of my arrange step, and I need a raw school. I went to the University of Virginia, so I like to use UVA as my guinea pig school just because it fits me. So I'm going to create this raw school, and raw school is really just an instance of it's a name tuple that has this data. I didn't want to use a pure dictionary. I wanted something that I could access with an attribute. So I used a name tuple, which is a convenient way to get you attribute style. So there's really not much to it there. So I have my raw school now, and I have my handle method. That's not actually what I'm going to call it here. I actually want to call the process school method that I've created below, which is going to do the work. And that again, this is my way of simplifying testing, so that I don't have to set up handle. I don't have to put this in a list to be passed in. I just think this will function better for my purposes. You might have noticed in my previous that I had things on the side that, so this is, I use a Vim plugin called Syntactic, which integrates with a Python lint checker, which gives me status information, which you can see towards the bottom of my editor window, telling me the reason these things are highlighted. And it's telling me one's an unused variable, one doesn't exist, which makes sense because I copy pasted it. So when I satisfy this, those things go away. So it's my indication of how to do this without without checking this kind of bad code. Best to check it up front is my thought. Okay, so I have my raw school. I have the method I want to call, and I want to excuse me, assert that the raw school exists, that it was created. So I'm going to assert the existence of something that's true. I'm going to take the Common App Tracker model, and I want to filter to the slug of UVA, and I want to say that it exists. This is Django terminology, using the Django model here. Django models have a manager. This is all to get to the Django object relational mapping and basically do a database query. So now that I have that there, my test is enough. Whoops, I've not imported the model, so let's also come up here and import the tracker. Okay, so I have my test that I want to be true, and I'm going to run my test, and good, it fails, which is exactly what I want to happen. So I'm gonna go with a pure TDD style here to do the simplest thing that make the test pass. Well, maybe not purely TDD, because I think I will jump ahead and say check for existence. So now we're into the actual code of the handler. So we get to the real work of this task, which is to do exactly that. So we have a raw app school, and you can see I'm using Python 3 type checking consistently. I actually have MyPy set up to have all this stuff, so I know exactly what I'm getting as my input parameter, and let's type check to validate that in the future. And you can see in my handler method that it's called, and this is a pretty stupid way to do it, or a simple way to do it, or basic. Some combination of those terms is just take all the schools and loop them in one at a time and process each one. Eventually there might be some state management to kind of, because as I said, I want to do something email, so I'll probably need to collect some state about it. But for now, I just want to get to the actual correct outcome, which is to create database records. So I want to take the Common App Tracker and I want to filter to the slug. And slug is a name that gets used in web applications. It's often a bit, if you have nice URLs like mywebsite.com/school/university-virginia, something like that. University-Virginia part is what we would call the slug of that. I don't actually know where the term comes from. It's what I've come across doing enough Django development. So we're going to filter on whether this already exists in the database. And this doesn't need to be fast, so I'm actually writing this in a way that's really not very performant. Because if you stop and think about what I'm doing, this is going to go over 800 schools, and each one of these is going to have multiple queries. So that's 800 queries at minimum, just by doing this existence check, and there'll be more along the way. That would, if this was like an actual review code that is going to be something that was displayed to the user, I would really frown upon doing that kind of logic in a loop. Since this is a background task that will run in the middle of the night, I'm less concerned about performance here. In fact, fact, I'm not even going to go back and like look at how many queries are ultimately run on this, because I just don't care. It will take on the order of a couple of minutes, maybe, and that will be perfectly sufficient. So I've got my existence check. If it does exist, that's a case that we're not actually testing now. So and for that point of view, I will skip this. That's really not what I'm interested in. But if it doesn't exist, that's where I want to create a record. So let's create a common app tracker, and we'll use the Django manager to say objects, which is access to the manager. And we want to create, and what we want to create, the only things that are required from our model record are the name and the slug. And thankfully, we have them from the raw data that we scraped. So I'll say raw app school name, and slug is raw app school slug. And that should be enough to get this going. So what you might have also noticed there is that when I saved my vim file, it reformatted my code. I run all of this code using Python Black, which is an automatic formatting that formats code in a style that adheres to Python conventions. Okay, let's try running the test now and see what happens. Good. We ran the test. We got a dot. Passed. So that at least checks off the add scenario. And now, there's going to be a problem with this already. We have a problem with, maybe not. Okay, I'm wondering if I actually want to delete things in the future. So, if you think about delete coming up, when it does the existence check, I don't know that I actually need to delete anything. So, because I'm going to track this over time. So let's say that there's a school that used the Common App, but then they changed their name. And they moved to a different kind of application. Like I said, there's a couple others. There's the universal application, there's the coalition, some different other formats. But at some point, some school's going to say, we don't want to be part of this Common App system anymore. And in that scenario, I talked about deleting stuff, but really, I don't think I will want to delete it. I don't want to have like a permanent record that I had a school there, but it's just not being tracked. Thankfully, the models already has this untracked notion, which I think I'll be able to safely use for schools that have been, that have come and gone and no longer get that definition of being a Commonwealth school. So for now, I think what we really want to do is check purely if something needs to be updated. So what I'm going to do is actually blindly save the new school name. I think it's a decent choice to just accept what the Common App is calling things to keep things in sync. Because I'm under the impression is that the slug of a school will be a unique identifier that they use in a way that will never change. And I'm basing that assumption on if you come over to the actual page of the colleges and you want to get to a different school, if you look in the bottom of my window, hopefully you can see that. Or how about this? I just go to the school. Up here, here's the slug right here, Alma College. If they don't have that slug as a unique identifier, they're going to have a bad time when two schools have the same name and are conflicting. So I'm going to use that as my unique identifier because they don't give me any ID to work from. to a safe assumption. But what I am going to do is maybe the name changed, and I'll just accept their name so that when I'm looking it up later, I'll have the most accurate data from their point of view. So the next thing we want to do is test that it modifies tracker. Tracker is the model. So a raw school that already exists updates when the school name. Now, when I write my tests, I try and use dot strings. Well, not all the time. I'm not 100% consistent, as you can see up here, like I didn't put a dot string. But most of the time, I want to make a short statement about what I want the state of the world to be. And there are some things about this that I didn't say test that a raw school. I didn't say a raw school should be. I'm just kind of using a very declarative style to say this is what this should ultimately be. And I think what that it lends itself to is a very clear, concise statement that helps you get a handle on what the test should be doing. And if you combine it with this arrange, act, assert pattern, this really is it's getting to my goal of what am I doing here. So that's why I have it. And they don't really, they serve a little bit of purpose when I come back in and haven't looked at the test in a while. I'd say, quickly, what does this test do? Do I have to read this code, or can I get the idea just by reading a short sentence about it? Usually that works. So, our test setup for this one is going to be a little bit more. And to make this work, the arrange has to be more complicated. So this time what I'm going to do is, in advance of running the actual code in the process, I am going to create a new instance. So I'm using a package called factory board that plugs into the model system of Django and lets me in my test very quickly create model instances that get wiped out between each test. So the way the Django runner works is each test gets its own clean copy of the database. Any transactions that happen during the test are discarded so that the test is left in kind of a pristine state. So I can safely make a record from my database and add it here and use it, and then know that it's not going to leak into my next test. So to test that I'm actually modifying the tracker, what I'm going to do is create a school with, I want to make sure that I'm definitely getting a different name. So let's call this something like much longer, University of Virginia. And let's make sure, remember that the slugs is what I'm defining as the unique identifier. So I'm going to connect the raw school to the slug. And so what this will do is create that model instance in my database so that when the actual code down here does the query, it's doing a real query against a real database to make sure that it's true. So that's the arrangement, and the difference being here is that the raw school, the data that I just pulled, has UVA, and the data that is already in the database has University of Virginia. So on the other side of this, I expect that what I get out of this is the common, common app tracker. I'm going to get that out of the database, doing a fresh get on it based on the raw school slug, because that shouldn't have changed. But what I'm going to assert is that the common app tracker name is now equal to the raw school name, which should be UVA rather than University of Virginia. I always forget. So here's something I don't care about Python, is that assert equal doesn't really tell you what should be expected and which is the actual value that you're testing against. So it's sort of up to you. And I'd like to try and be consistent in that if I can, but I can never remember which way I do it. So let's look over here. So it looks like the way I'm writing my equals is to have my expected data be on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side. So coming back over here, looks like I actually want this to be the other way around. So I want my expected value is the raw school name, and my actual value is the common app tracker name. Okay. So now let's run a test. Whoops. I do this often. I write object instead of objects. Probably as a side effect that Python has a base object class, but Django also has objects, which is the manager. Just a typo that I make with regularity. Okay, the test is failing as I expect. Cool. And let's see. I think I'm gonna, okay, I might want to refactor this already. So the nice part about having tests is that now I have the freedom to refactor. With another keystroke, I can run all of my tests in this file, of which there are 3 right now, to be confident in my code. And the reason I'm looking at this, because I'm wanting to refactor, is what I really might want to do is get out this instance and update it if it exists, rather than doing an existence check. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and change this to be common app tracker. And this is something that a regular part of my flow. I see something that I'm not happy with, I don't like, and I just change it because I think it's going to make better code in the end. And I have the freedom to do that because I have my test that protect me. So what I'm going to do is now switch this pattern around to say to use an exception that's very common in Django. So now what I'm doing is I'm saying, if you don't exist, create a new instance. And I'm not even sure that this is the right way to go about this, because I want to say that Django has a new way to do this. So let's look it up. Also very used to going to documentation. What I'm looking for is an update or create method. I think that's what it's called. So Django update or create. Sometimes Stack Overflow is very useful. At least give me a quick idea. So yeah, and you can even start to see, this is the code that I started to write over on the side. It was a try. It was going to pull the object out based on some value. I was going to update some aspects of it, and then save it. I haven't gotten that far yet, but these two steps, that was going to be the next step. And in contrast, if it didn't exist, it was going to take all of that stuff, create a new instance of it, and save that. So instead, it looks like I can say, do it this way. So that's good to know. I'm going to try this. Well, let's get to a green passing test first. Make sure that I am sane, and then we'll try and refactor again to make the code even better. So I'm going to pull out the instance. We're going to say we only care about updating the tracker name to the raw school name. And then we want to update the tracker and save it. It's not called raw school here. Raw common school. Okay. If I run that, good. I have passing tests across the board. So that means that the refactor that I did was correct. Or at least I have confidence in it. Somebody can probably argue with me about the actual correctness of it on some other level. So now that we have this, let's try switching over to this other style over here. Let's see. We want to update or create. Well, what I don't want to do here is I don't want to accidentally, like if the name changes, but the slug remains the same, I don't want to create two model instances here. I want to just have one. Thankfully, I think my test will help in that regard because I'm using get. So if I happen to mess this up badly, the get will actually, it fails if it ever encounters, if it can't resolve one database record. So if slug suddenly has two values in it that map to it, it will fail. So that's a safety mechanism that's there that would be useful. So I'm going to comment out some code. I'm not afraid to do that momentarily. I don't like committing commented out code. Get this back up and just see what it starts to talk. But this is just so I can see what's there, and if the experiment goes badly, I can ditch it. So I'm going to try the thing that seems right, but may I in fact be wrong, because I might be misunderstanding the API slightly. So I want update or create. Name is raw common school name. Slug is raw common school slug. Okay. My guess is that will fail. We'll see. Yes, it does. In fact, even it failed even better than I thought. I didn't realize that I put a unique constraint on the slug, or that might be a default aspect of a slug field, which I use. So it says you can't actually do that. So let's see, am I using the API? What I really want to do is I want to update name if it needs to, but I don't want to update slug. Maybe I just need to read for a second. I'm trying to figure out is if it's possible to put slug as something to do the filtering on, but not have it used as part of the update. I'm looking at alternatives like get or create. Looking through this, I kind of want to see if I can use defaults as part of a get or create instead. Okay. So let's try switching this to let's keep with update or create, in fact. And then let's switch this to defaults. Okay, I think this makes sense, because what does this say? This is saying if you don't exist, you're going to need a value for slug. That's part of this, it's required. So what is that value going to be? So update the name if you have it. If you don't, and you need to make this record, slug is a required field. So what are you going to use as that default? So hopefully this does what I want. Slug. Okay. You know, I've been doing Django for a while, many years, and still I don't always know how to use it, which is crazy, but that's the reality. So I'm going to punt on this version. It's not important enough to make it this the most concise, as I said. So I'm going to try and just leave it alone for now, because we're going to pass and test. So, and there's nothing technically wrong with the approach that I did here, as far as I can tell. So, there's an opportunity for learning later, I'm sure, on my own part, but I'm okay with this. So now we have what? We have the new school is created if it didn't exist, and we did that by checking the slug. And then if it did exist, we just go to the name and update it. There's an optimization here for sure that we could do. It would save on some inserts that, if the name is different, if it's not different, don't actually do anything. Should I do that? Again, I don't think I really care that much. If it's inserting, if it's doing some updates on the database and the name is the same, this is not like a super performant area, or it does not have to be super performant, so I'm fine with that. So this tracker is now creating these records. It's adding new ones, it's modifying existing ones, we're not going to delete anything because, as I said, if a school is removed from the website, I don't actually. Oh, okay. Here's a scenario that I need to factor in. If a school is removed from the Common App site, I need to know that not to use it anymore. My site. Let's say I don't think UVA is a Common App school. I honestly don't know, but let's say UVA is a Common App school, and they decide we don't want to be in a Common App school anymore. If I'm setting College Conductor to show the deadlines for all Common App schools, and I say that UVA is a Common App school, and it's not, that means that I am lying to my users. So I do need to check that that all of the schools in the list, if there's one that's missing that I have in my database, that's missing from the raw schools, I need to flag that one and say, you need to make sure this is no longer active. That is the last piece of this. So I do need to do some kind of delete. I'm not going to actually delete the record from the school, but I need to tell myself that this is important not to track anyone. How am I going to do that? I think it has to come from here. I don't think I can do this at the individual school level, because down here, a school, this is only going to process raw schools that come in. And we're actually looking at the inverse of that, the schools that I have in the database that are no longer on the Common App website. So it really is a matter of checking the condition when the number of schools that I track is actually greater than the number of schools that are reported back. In fact, I need to have a different status, or I need to ignore certain of these schools on purpose. So, wow, this is the funny part about designing software as a service. You realize, like, edge cases that, in order to be correct, you have to get down to it. Because let's go back to this check that I thought would be fairly harmless. Now is actually a real problem. So, using UVA as our fictitious Common App school that is no longer a Common App, if I have that record in my database, and this is now one less from the Common App site, this is never going to match. So I need to almost have like a tombstone kind of record to say, like, I'm deliberately ignoring certain of these schools that were once tracked but are no longer tracked. Good grief. So in order to do that, how am I going to do that? I think I really need to have a new status in the model that that accounts for this. Okay, so let's do that. Let's say in the models, and this will be different from untracked. So untracked is a school that that I just don't care to follow. There's 800 schools, and some of them will be important to me because they'll be schools that match my list. Some of them may not be. Some of them may be little community colleges. There are plenty of community colleges and College Conductor, but I don't track them all because there are so many. And if there's a mismatch there, I wanted to have a status that said, like, maybe someday I'll track it, but for now it's untracked. This is actually, the case I'm talking about is actually a different thing. It says, like, I once tracked it, now it's not. So let's call this removed. How about that? And that will give me the extra flexibility that I need in order to do that count comparison, because it will recognize that I may have extra data than the other. Unfortunately, it complicates my tests a little bit, but that's okay. Coming back over here, so now this is going to have to change. Now we can't just do a straight up count, because we have to factor in for schools that we have in the database that aren't on Common App site anymore. So we have to say we want to, let's write the test first, I guess. So I want to actually create another school that is has that status of Common App Tracker removed. Okay. So this should fail. So now the length of our list, our Common App schools here is 1. But the length of our number of records in the database is 2. So it failed the check, and then it actually called process school, which I did by marking this out. So, all right, let's fix this now. So now we can come over here, and we can say we're going to exclude any school that has the status of Common App Tracker removed. And I may even want to make that the default, but I'll leave it as is. There's ways that you can make the manager of the model, that's what this objects thing is. It's actually a Django model manager. So it's something that Django automatically attaches to each model. They get their own default that knows just how to query records. But you can customize this thing to have different behavior. So if I wanted to, for instance, always exclude the removed ones, then I could do that. I'm not sure I want to do that because I think that would affect the Django admin and a bunch of other things, and it's just going to be messy. But there. So now we have our test passing again. We have this new state, and that feels pretty good. Okay, so we still have this to-do of we need to mark, or maybe not mark, I want to do a lot of the auditing of this will probably be done manually, so it leads me to report. Report any schools that should be removed. And this has to be done outside of this raw loop, because remember, the set of Common App schools won't include everything in the database potentially. Okay. So, what is the best way to find the difference? I guess we could do how should we do this? We know from up here, so right now I'm just testing for equality and returning for equal. But this scenario is really, they could be, I think this is really accounting for there could be more of these. That's what this is really thinking about. And in what we're not really looking at is a scenario where it's less. So I think what I want to do probably is pull out these into variables so I don't have to run the query multiple times. Well, I guess I don't need to do that for this length, but let's pull this out. So as a count. So what is that? It's the tracked, the active, so active tracked schools count. Is that fair? Because it's active because it's excluding the removed stuff, and then it's a count because it's the count query. So that feels right to me. So let's put that over here, and active track schools count. And thankfully Block was able to clean up the style of that a lot pretty nicely. Okay, let's check if our tests still work. Didn't screw anything up. Good. Okay, so now that we have this, I can check on the extra condition down here of this process school stuff has a side effect. So that's, I think we probably want to do any status accounting before we start adding new schools to the database. So here in this handle method, we want to check if the active tracked count is greater than the length of Common App score. This is the raw Common App score, I should say. Then we want to do this way, I think. It sounds logical to me. Let me think through that. Yeah, we should, because this is like, we haven't done any processing yet. So it's just saying there's something extra in here in the Common App trackers that's not in here. Now the question is, how do I get the schools? It's going to be kind of gnarly, but it'll work. Let's do this. Let's take we're going to call this the Common App School Slug. Again, I'm not aiming to be fast here. So what I want to do, I'm doing this without tests, which is probably bad of me, so I'll pause and then have to write some tests to actually do this. Because I want to get the set of slugs for raw Common App School. Let me get the code out so that I can speak to what it's doing. So I'm doing something again. It's not super fast, but it's accurate. This is pulling out every slug from the school. So ultimately this will have a list of 818 different slugs. Okay, so now what we can do is we can say the removed schools removed, let's call it the removed trackers to keep with the model window, but it's effectively this school. We're going to say the common app tracker objects, and we want to filter again to the ones that are not in that officially removed status. So okay, I'm going to give this a better name, newly removed trackers, because I don't want it just to talk, like, make it feel like it has something to do with this removed status. We're going to take this and I'm going to exclude all of anything that has a slug in the common app school slugs. Okay, it's quite a query. What's it doing? I'm looking at all of them, all of the track schools, except for the ones that are removed. Nope. Not correct. Exclude these. So you can chain together things. And to make it flow a little better, no, black's not going to like that, so we'll do that like this. No, I lied. Sorry. So, immediately remove trackers. Remove trackers. Okay. Okay. So black is, I'm a little too indented here, so black is not being so kind in terms of the rebuilding of this, but that's okay. So the first thing we're doing is we're chopping off the removed schools. The next thing we're doing is we're using the raw schools slugs and using that to guide the next thing that we exclude. Based on this logic, this set of newly removed trackers right here should be everything that we need to report on. Now what? What I don't know what to do with this is to test it, because I set up wanted to do reporting, but I don't have any mechanism to report yet. So I think that's probably where I'm going to leave it for tonight. I am going to do a quick check on the type stuff. Oops, missing some type checks. Oh, so I'm type checking. I set up MyPy to type check everything, including tests. This is a little bit annoying, but I wanted the benefit of type checks to make sure that my tests are calling methods correctly. So I'm willing to put up with a little bit of noise in my test signature for the benefit of doing my type checks. Now I should have that being golden. And that's my process before I commit usually, is to check out my diff and see if it's reasonable. So I refactored that count to include remove stuff. It's reminding me of something else I need to do, which I'll go over in a minute. And the length check is still there. We have all of this what to do when there are more schools, but we're not doing anything with them. I don't think that's going to break any tests right now. The processing is the new piece. It's creating new instances if they don't exist, or updating the name of any instances that do exist. I added a removed status to the tracker, and my tests add the add tracker and modify tracker. Okay, and both of those feel pretty good. Let's check that the tests will work. They do. Okay, there's one more piece that I'm missing for this. So I modified my models. And in Django, anytime you go to modify your models, it usually triggers a migration. This is a migration. I know this will trigger a migration that does not actually modify a SQL, but well, it has to be run anyway. So as part of this, I'm going to make a migration. Oops, spell the command name correctly to make a migration. So it's adding that new field to the status and the comment tracker, which you can see is migration number 2 on this new trackers app that I have. So I'm going to add all this stuff to my Git switch control, and I have an issue on conductor to track all this stuff. It's this 357. So I like some amount of traceability. This repository is mostly for me, so I find that a simple title is usually enough for me to remember what I'm working on. Which is why there's no transcription. But I'm going to commit this stuff, and what did it do? It reformatted the generated migration file. That's fine. I have pre-commit hooks installed in here to run some additional checking to make it's like a belt and suspended approach to make sure that all my code is as high quality as it can be before I send it off to continuous integration, which runs checks on that too. So I'm going to commit my code and say process raw common schools. That's kind of enough. I could go for a more involved commit message, but I'm not going to. And this doesn't actually fix anything yet because we didn't handle that last case. I didn't test it anyway, but it is for issue 357. So I'll commit and push it up. And if you're wondering what is this GPGC, I use CSH, and it has aliases or it has different plugins you can use. That's not quite true. So ZSH is a shell. I use an extension system called ZSH. And ZSH is a way of adding extra functionality on top of ZSH to make it even more awesome. One of those things that I use is a Git plugin. Is moving my train of thought. And the Git plugin gives me different aliases that mostly start with G, kind of takes over the G of my aliases. And I've just gotten so ingrained to using these because they're very short. So git push is what I just push with. Git GAA is up here. It's git add all, so it adds all my files to my staging area. GC is committing code, and so on. So that's what those aliases are. So I think I've been streaming for about an hour and 15 minutes, so that's a long time. I got a chunk of work done that I wanted to get done, and I think that I feel pretty good about what's here. So it seems like a decent place to stop for the evening. So I don't know, I see 2 people there. I don't know who is here. Thanks for watching. I don't know. Maybe you're bots. I have no idea who you are. Or I don't even know if I'm doing Twitch right. So, if you watch this stream tonight, or if you're watching a recording later, and you have feedback about what I just did, and what was helpful, or what was really a waste of your time, I'd love to hear about it. So yeah, thank you for watching, and have a good night.